In what so far has turned out to be great issues by the Darth Vader writing staff and everybody who was involved with the new Darth Vader comic series in 2020, this has been something spectacular, and I think this is the timeline, especially of Darth Vader in this comic line, is the one that is very favorable. The last two series delved into a lot of stories that could have gone either way, but now with telling the story of Darth Vader between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, this has been fleshed out so far precisely and perfectly as the fans deserve to see him go down the rabbit hole of his past, confront it, and maybe come out either bitter by the end or a little better. But him traveling to Naboo is what we're going to talk about in this video, and how he met Jar Jar's basic family, the Gungans that actually raised him down on Gunga. But as we do that, I want to first pay homage to the first Gungan that appeared in this comic series, and many of you might have forgotten him. Stay till the end to see the Gungans that were there when Jar Jar was being raised as a child until he was banished. We will talk about those people by the end, but let's go from the first issue onwards. In the first issue, if you guys remember, I honestly thought this Gungan was Jar Jar, and how befitting it would be if Jar Jar would participate in this battle. The problem with it is that Jar Jar already appeared in the famous novel where we saw a brief history of him, what happened in the aftermath of everything that we saw in the movies. Jar Jar appeared in the novel Empire's End, where we see him performing as a jester on the streets of Naboo, ashamed and guilty for what he had done to the former Republic. While many saw that as a befitting punishment, I honestly would have loved for them to include Jar Jar in this battle. Although it's not befitting canonically, I understand that. It would have been beautiful to see Jar Jar partake, if not for the last time, in the battle for Padme, in these few issues where the Nabooans are defending Padme's tomb and are defending their queen, essentially. And in the first issue, not only myself, but there was a lot of Star Wars fans on Twitter and everywhere else, they were asking the question, was this Jar Jar that we miss? And essentially, it is not. It is just another Gungan that joined the Rebel Alliance. Unfortunately for him, he got devoured immediately by the natives of the Vendexa planet, and just as fitting because seconds later Darth Vader made it inside and he would have killed him, presumably, as well. Moving forward though, as we know by now by reading the comics, Vader went on to meet Sabé, the handmaiden of Padme, where both of them teamed up together and went on a journey to Padme's tomb, which led them to Naboo. Unfortunately, Vader learns that Sabé had sprung a trap for Vader to kill him once and for all, as Sabé suspected Vader killed Padme. What happens next is truly astonishing, as not only do we see the memorial for everybody involved in the Naboo Trade Federation war, the unification that the war presented for the Galactic Republic and Naboo was presented for everybody to see. From the left to the right, there was a memorial that included Jar Jar as well, together with every close friend and family that Jar Jar had at that time. Once Vader makes it alive out of that trap, now we meet more of Jar Jar's family. More specifically, the Naboo Amidalans, as they call themselves. In the background of Rick Oley, the pilot that we see in episode 1, there are a number of Gungans who are ready to kill Darth Vader. By what we can count on this page alone, Jar Jar's Gungan family is in the numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, just from what we can see, 4 Gungans amongst a multitude of human and other alien-like beings that will defend Padme Amidala's memory and her tomb as well. This is the sad part about Darth Vader, especially on this comic, because Darth Vader had forgotten everything he had ever stood for as Anakin Skywalker. He killed every memory he had, and he killed everything that stood in his path, including the Gungans that were ready to defend Padme's tomb, just as they defended their planet decades ago together with Jar Jar against the Trade Federation. But alas, it wasn't meant to be, as Darth Vader destroyed not only the handmaidens, but he killed a number of Nabooans as well, together with a lot of Gungans, what we can presume to be Gungans, as we see a multitude of corpses just laying there as Vader had lashed out at everybody. All of them had their heads down, as Vader's entering the tomb of Padme was now inevitable. And Jar Jar's memory unfortunately would not live on in that memorial. It was destroyed. Sadly, as I said previously, he did not participate in this battle, although I would have loved to see Vader kill him in this battle and end Jar Jar's poetic existence in sort of a heroic way, I would assume. For those who missed that battle, let me quickly recount on what happened. Vader was of the Empire, and he was basically coming to desecrate or destroy her tomb in any shape or form. If they only knew that Vader had come to find out more about Padme, to find out about her children that Vader and she had together decades ago. Let's not forget that Darth Vader is basically after Luke this whole time. He cannot rest until he finds Luke Skywalker before his master Emperor Palpatine, who will use Luke Skywalker to ultimately remove Darth Vader and institute a new apprentice, a stronger and a younger Sith. In understanding that, we get to see Darth Vader go step by step down below through the stairway and in front of Padme's statue. She was adorning the dress wear that she had in The Phantom Menace, more specifically the one that closed out the ceremonies and the joint factions between the Gungans and the Naboo people. It was used right at the end of episode 1. We even saw her adorning this dress in the shrine that was dedicated to her down in the waters. Now, we still don't know what happened with the bigger fish and Sabé sacrificing herself together with Gregor and Tora. We don't see them in this preview fighting Darth Vader, so my assumption is that they died when the fish attacked, but Sabé and Vader somehow survived this ordeal, and now we're seeing them come face to face as a familiar voice speaks loudly to Vader. And it was, believe it or not, Padme's past. The handmaidens of Padme had banded all together. One way or another, they're not going to let Darth Vader enter that tomb. To me, this represents Padme's ghost, her past. It is literally Padme standing up from the grave and stopping this nightmare. Her handmaidens were trained to behave, walk, and think exactly like Padme would. So basically, these 5 females stopping Darth Vader in his tracks, it's what Padme would ultimately do as well if she were alive today, and would see what Anakin had become, and to what level he would stoop. To find his son for his evil schemes, she would realize that Anakin still hadn't changed. Even back when Anakin choked her, he was still talking about evil machinations, that he will destroy the Emperor and become the ruler of a galaxy that was now in turmoil. Today, more than 20 years later, he was still the same deluded Anakin that once dreamed of ruling the galaxy alone. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you can have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.